The hallway light buzzed low and flickered once, then again, just enough to make me pause. My shadow stretched long along the worn carpet, thin and quiet like I'd become. I held my small overnight bag in one hand and rested the other on the wall to steady myself. My feet moved slower than I meant them to, like they understood something I hadn't yet admitted. The hum of the dishwasher drifted in from the kitchen. Someone was cleaning up after dinner. Her, probably. I used to be the one wiping plates, stacking them just so. I reached the door at the end of the hall, the one they said would be mine, for now. I looked at the doorknob for a moment. It was brass, a little loose, like it never quite fit right in the door. I sighed softly and turned it. "It's just temporary," I whispered to no one. But the air didn't respond. It just smelled faintly of old furniture polish and last night's reheated stew. The bulb overhead gave off a tired yellow glow, barely enough to see the corners. The room was cold in that trapped kind of way, like air that hadn't been stirred in years. I stepped inside and the door shut behind me with a dull click. There were boxes stacked near the wall, one of them labeled Xmas 2011. Another just said, Garage. A crooked shelf leaned near the cot, where a few folded towels sat neatly. Hers, no doubt. I sat down slowly on the edge of the cot. It creaked under my weight, like it hadn't held anyone in a long while. The mattress was thin and stiff. I rubbed my hands together and breathed in mothballs, dust, that deep, stale smell of forgotten things. There was no window, just drywall and silence. I looked around and tried to imagine it as mine. But it felt more like a storage closet that someone had whispered my name into out of guilt. I told myself I was lucky to have a place at all. But the room didn't agree. It said nothing. And that said enough. I heard his voice through the wall. Not shouting, not cruel, just casual. "It's just one room," he said. "Just..." I stared at the wall, blinking slowly. I knew that tone, the one that said, "I don't see what the big deal is." I didn't move, didn't answer. I just let the words settle in the air like dust. I had once made every room in this house feel like a home. My hands had painted those walls, folded those towels, tucked that child, my child, into bedsheets with fire trucks on them. And now, just one room. I smiled, the kind that doesn't show teeth. The kind that keeps the tears inside where they belong. My chest felt tight, not from anger, but from something softer, something sadder. There's a kind of disappointment only a mother knows. The quiet kind, the kind that doesn't raise its voice because it knows it won't be heard. Anyway, I unzipped my bag and laid it on the cot. One sweater. I folded it gently and set it down. Then the scarf. My favorite one, the one James gave me one Christmas when we still believed time would never run out. I folded that one too. I placed my photo of him on the makeshift nightstand. A little gold frame. He was smiling in it, wearing the same silly flannel he insisted made him look rugged. I smiled back at him, softly. My hands moved the way they always had, slow, practiced, with care, like they were tucking love into every corner of a drawer. But my heart didn't move that way. It moved with hesitation, with caution. It's hard to settle into a place that doesn't feel like it's yours, harder still when you know it never will be. The ceiling above me was blank. No fan, no light fixture, just smooth, white stillness. I lay on my side, trying to find comfort, but the mattress didn't give much. The sheets smelled like laundry detergent, but not mine. I missed the sound of my own floorboards, the gentle creak they made when I shifted in bed, the way they'd always let me know I was home. I missed the soft rustle of the curtains I picked out with care, the ones that caught the morning sun just right. Here, Even the silence felt different. Not peaceful, just stiff, like the room was holding its breath and waiting for me to leave. Stared at the ceiling for a long time, wondering when the word home stopped meaning comfort and started meaning somewhere else. I pulled the blanket up over my shoulders, thin as it was. The night had deepened, and the air felt colder near the floor. My toes curled beneath me. I whispered to myself, just until they get settled. Just until they feel less stressed. Just until money's not so tight. Just until they see me. But as I closed my eyes, I knew. This wasn't a temporary thing, not really. Some moves don't come in boxes. They come in silence. It looks exchanged across dinner tables. The doors left open just wide enough to say, "You're welcome," but not, "You belong." The birds were starting to sing already, muffled through the insulation. I made a promise I didn't quite believe, and I let the morning come without. Fighting it. The mornings used to belong to me. I'd rise before anyone else, the house still wrapped in sleep. I'd slide into my slippers, the old blue ones with the thinning soles, and shuffle to the kitchen. The floor creaked just enough to say good morning. The sun would come in soft through the lace curtains, landing warm on the counters. I'd wipe them down with lemon polish, breathing in that bright, clean scent. Cinnamon toast in the oven, coffee bubbling on the stove. It smelled like safety. I used to pack his lunch with care. Peanut butter and honey, cut diagonal. I'd fold a little note, just a line or two, "You've got this. Love, Mom." Sometimes a heart. Always the same handwriting. Back then, I didn't need to be asked. I was the rhythm. The day started with me. Now I walk through the same space and barely leave a footprint. My slippers are still here. But the morning doesn't feel like it's mine anymore. Even the napkins remember me. That thought crossed my mind the other day when I opened the drawer and saw them. Crisp, white, linen. I used to fold them into swans for Sunday dinners. Tulips for birthdays. James used to chuckle, "You're wasting your talents on napkins," but I knew better. It wasn't a waste. It was love, folded carefully, one crease at a time. I see myself now, younger, arms steady, fingers confident. Every fold was a note to the family. You matter. This matters. Now, my hands move slower. They hesitate. The napkins don't feel like they belong to me anymore. I ironed them out of habit the other day, but I couldn't bring myself to fold them, the table was already set. Not by me, not the way I would have done it, and I stood there, just holding one napkin, wondering if anyone would notice if I folded it into a swan, just once more. It used to be our favorite game when the rain came. I'd gather chairs from the kitchen, couch cushions from the den, and every blanket I could find. He'd squeal with excitement, dragging his teddy bear behind him. "Queen of the fort!" he'd shout, handing me a clothespin like it was a crown. I built him castles out of quilts and cardboard, worlds where thunder couldn't reach. We'd crawl inside with flashlights and tell stories, chocolate milk and peanut butter crackers tucked beside us. Those were our kingdoms, cozy and safe and full of magic. Now I step across that same living room with careful feet. There's no teddy bear, no scattered pillows, just clean lines and cold hardwood. I glance at the corner where we used to build, where the rug still dips slightly from years of kneeling, and I wonder if the room remembers, even if no one else does. I was walking down the hall last week when I saw it, just a faint pencil line on the doorframe, faded now, almost gone, but I knew what it was. David, age 8. My handwriting, still there. We used to measure him every birthday. He'd stand tall and wiggle his toes to look taller. "Straight, David, stand straight." He'd giggle, but he always tried. I stopped and touched the mark. My fingers rested there for a moment, just long enough for the lump to rise in my throat. No one saw me pause. They walked past, talking about dinner plans. But I stood still, palm on the wood, remembering how proud he was when he passed that last mark. It felt like pressing my hand to something holy. I used to know every creak in this house, every little moan the stairs made, the hum the fridge let out at night when the kitchen fell quiet. It was our secret language. Now, it speaks differently. The steps creak in new places. The hallway has a rhythm that doesn't wait for me. There's a radio in the kitchen now, playing country music. Not the kind I liked, just loud enough to cover up silence. I listen hard, but the sounds don't answer me anymore. It's like the walls forgot the way I used to move through them, and maybe I forgot too. They used to run to me when I said their name. One call of Mom, and they were in my arms, sticky fingers, scraped knees, sleepy eyes. I was the one they trusted in the dark. I knew the tricks. Ice packs wrapped in towels, lullabies hummed low, nightlights left on just enough. Now, when they say Mom, it's with a sigh, a pause, a look exchanged before speaking. Sometimes they don't say it at all, just her or she in passing. But I remember when Mom was the softest word in the world, when it meant warmth, safety, home. And even if they've forgotten, I haven't. I caught a glimpse of her in the hallway mirror. Not long, just a flash. She had flour on her cheek and a dish towel slung over her shoulder. Eyes soft, chin held high. The woman who used to make Sunday dinner from scratch and iron shirts with lavender spray. She's not gone. She's just quiet now, waiting behind my tired eyes and slow hands. I smiled at her. Just a little, and I whispered, I remember you, because sometimes, even when no one else does, we have to remember ourselves. The vent always hummed at night, low and steady like a lullaby. I used to find comfort in it, a quiet rhythm under the floorboards, like the house was breathing. But that night, the hum carried more than air. I lay there under the quilt, eyes open, the light from the street lamp spilling soft across the wall. And then I heard her voice. She thinks she's doing us a favor, she said. It floated through the metal grate like smoke, sharp, curling. His voice followed. Lower, not mean, just tired. But he didn't stop her. I didn't move. Didn't shift. I just stayed still. She should be grateful, she added, like I was something they had rescued from the side of the road. And he didn't say a word. The hum of the vent kept going, soft and even. But inside, something small in me folded. Quietly. And I knew, right then, the warmth I was wrapped in wasn't love. It was just a blanket. She should be grateful we took her in. That's what she said. The words slid through the vent and landed right in my chest. I laid there, my hands folded on top of the quilt, trying not to breathe too loudly as if they'd hear me hearing them. Grateful? For what exactly? For the windowless room? For the space behind the holiday boxes? I had packed his lunches, cut the crust off his bread, kissed his fevered forehead at 2 a.m. I held his hand when he was afraid of thunder. I gave my life piece by piece, and now I was a favor. She's just a little particular, she added. It's exhausting. The heater kicked on with a loud clunk, and the air filled with the scent of dust and detergent. I stared at the ceiling. Blank. Still. Gratitude. Had nothing left to offer but my presence. And even that, it seemed, was too much. He didn't defend me. Not once. She said her piece, curled words like they were facts, not judgment, and he just sat there, not even a soft "Mom's trying." Not even that. The wind rattled the window, frame, soft but steady, like it was trying to get in and take me away from it all. The street lamp flickered, casting faint shadows across the floor. I didn't even blink, just stared ahead while the bed springs groaned under the weight of thought. I raised that boy to be kind, to speak when silence would hurt someone more. But that night, I realized something I didn't want to. That little boy I raised with bedtime stories and hand-stitched Halloween costumes had grown into a man who forgot how to see me. My hand moved on its own. It found its way to my chest, not to pray but to steady something. Something inside that felt too loose all of a sudden. I could feel my heart. Slow, heavy, each beat loud. In the silence, I wasn't angry, I wasn't even surprised, I was just hollow. The kind of emptiness only a mother can know, when her love is shrugged off like an old coat someone didn't ask to borrow. There was a creak in the hallway. Someone walked by. They didn't stop, didn't knock. The quilt was warm, but it didn't comfort me. I stared at the ceiling and let my hand stay right where it was, over the ache, holding nothing but breath. I remembered the day like it was stitched into my bones. He was 7. A boy on the playground had called me weird for bringing cupcakes in mismatched containers. I laughed it off. But David didn't. He marched over, fists balled, and said, "Don't talk about my mom like that." He got in trouble for it. We had ice cream on the way home. That little boy, he would have never let anyone talk bad about me, not even whisper it. And now I was invisible while someone questioned my right to belong in the home I once made. I searched for him, in my mind, like a mother calling through fog. "Where did you go, sweetheart?" But there was no answer. Just snow starting to fall outside and a house layered in a silence I didn't recognize anymore. I turned my head slowly, away from the vent, away from the voices. The wall greeted me, plain, pale, unmoving. It didn't ask anything of me, didn't judge, didn't care. And strangely, that felt like a kindness. I stared at it, letting the cold air brush against the back of my neck. Let the quiet hum of the house press in. That night, something shifted. They'd made space for my body, sure. A cot, a drawer, a dinner plate. But not for me. Not for my voice. Not for my stories. Not for my worth. And once you know that truth, even the walls start to feel different. Sleep came eventually. Not soft like it used to. Not the kind that wraps around you like a hug. It came heavy, like a coat soaked in rain. I didn't dream. I didn't hope. I just stopped thinking. My body gave in before my heart could keep fighting. The clock ticked somewhere far off. The room didn't change. Neither did I. No warmth, no comfort. Just a long, blank stillness that matched the space I was learning to take. Up. That night didn't end in tears. It ended in a kind of quiet I don't ever want to meet again. The fridge was covered in red circles. Little loops drawn neatly on the calendar, Friday to Sunday. Flight at 10. Dinner at Javier's. Check-in at 3. I stood there for a while, my finger tracing one circle, then another. The morning sun spilled across the tile, floor like it always had, warm and golden, but somehow the kitchen still felt cold. Not once did I see my name. Not even Mom's here. I leaned in a little, scanning again just to be sure, as if maybe I missed it. But there it was, every detail of their weekend, carefully planned. And me, not part of it. I wasn't angry. Just invisible. The scent of coffee drifted through the air, mixing with lemon cleaner and the faint sound of them laughing down the hallway. I stood still, hands resting on the edge of the counter. They had scheduled their fun, their freedom, and forgotten. I was standing right there, folding towels no one had asked me to wash. I leaned against the kitchen counter and cleared my throat. "Do you want me to stay with the kids while you're gone?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked up from the dishes, a bit startled. "Oh, we hadn't thought about that." Her eyes blinked fast, like it hadn't even crossed her mind. That pause said more than anything else. I had offered it out of habit. That's what moms do. That's what grandmothers do. But the moment stretched just a little too long. The dishwasher door clicked shut, the sound sharper than it needed to be. A breeze drifted through the screen door behind her, lifting the edge of the curtain. I looked down at my hands, thumbs rubbing together gently. "It's no trouble," I added. She smiled, polite. "We already arranged a sitter, just for simplicity." I nodded, but something inside me folded up neatly, like the dish towels in the drawer behind her. They didn't plan around me because they didn't think of me. And for the first time, I didn't try to pretend that didn't hurt. She was sorting through a pile of papers on the counter, flipping through brochures and receipts like the moment didn't carry weight. I asked quietly, "So where will I be while you're away?" She didn't even look up. "Oh, I thought you'd stay here." Just like that, like a casual note about milk on the grocery list. I nodded slowly, pretending I understood, but the words sank somewhere deeper than they had any right to. Stay here. In the room with no window, with boxes stacked around the bed like I was another piece of forgotten storage. She didn't mean harm. That made it worse, because harm would mean I mattered enough to push against this. This was being gently erased while still in the room. I turned to rinse my teacup, the water running warm over my fingers, and I let her words echo, quietly, like they always do. She turned back to the sink, drying her hands on a dish towel. I stood near the table, holding my cup with both hands. I gave her a smile, the kind of smile mothers learn to give, meant to keep things smooth, keep things light. It was small, warm, on the outside, hollow on the inside. She didn't look twice, didn't notice the difference. The clock on the wall ticked gently above us. I took a sip, though the tea had gone cold. There were 100 things I could have said. 100 things I could have shouted, but instead, I smiled. Sometimes silence is the only way we allow ourselves to feel pain without causing more of it. It's the quietest kind of heartbreak. And that morning, I let it sit beside me at the table, unspoken. They ran by me like a gust of wind, laughing, backpacks bouncing, little shoes tapping across the hardwood. One of them brushed against my leg. "Bye, Grandma," I smiled. "Have fun," I called. Out gently, their little voices trailed down the hallway as they shouted back and forth about snacks and car games. The youngest dropped a stuffed bunny, then scooped it up mid-run. No one looked back. I stood there, arms at my sides, empty. No one asked if I wanted a hug. No one paused to squeeze my hand. The scent of cereal milk still hung in the air, sweet and familiar, mixing with strawberry shampoo. I used to be the one they didn't leave without. I used to say goodbye. Now I was just a figure by the door, watching them go. I waved again, even though they weren't looking. It's funny how loud absence can feel when it's surrounded by joy. I stood at the edge of the kitchen as the front door clicked shut behind them. I didn't cry. I didn't move. The engine rumbled softly outside, and then the car was gone. The house went still, so still it almost rang in my ears. The scent of spring flowers from the vase on the table reached me all at once, as if it had been waiting for silence to bloom. I looked around the kitchen. The sunlight still poured in. The floor was still clean. The clock still ticked. But everything felt different. I hadn't realized how many pieces of me were still tied to this place until they walked out and left them all behind. I sat down at the table and rested my hand on the wood. They left for the weekend, but it felt like they left me, and in a house I once called mine, I suddenly didn't know where to stand. The stack of mail sat where it always did, half fanned across the dining table. Bills, grocery coupons, the usual catalog with 2 young models wearing things I wouldn't dare try on. But tucked between them was something different. A sky blue envelope. My full name was written in soft, looping handwriting that looked like It had taken its time. I reached for it slowly, my fingertips brushing against the paper. It smelled faintly of lavender, just a whisper of it, like someone had stored it beside something precious. The afternoon sun stretched across the table, touching the edges of the envelope like it was something holy. I sat down, holding it gently, in my hands. My name hadn't been written like this in a long while, not typed, not scrawled. But chosen. I hadn't even opened it yet, and already my chest felt a little warmer. Someone had thought of me. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The chair made a soft scrape as I sat down, the envelope still unopened in my lap. I turned it over slowly, twice, then slipped a finger under the flap and eased it open. Her handwriting hadn't changed. Still that elegant, flowing script, looped and light, like the kind you only see on recipe cards or love notes from another time. "Dear Clara," it began. Smiled before I could help it. "Just for a change of pace," she wrote. "Come stay a while," like it was nothing. Just a little idea over tea. But it wasn't nothing. Every loop of her letters felt like music, like the old hymns I used to hum while drying dishes, like a hand reaching back through time to tap me gently on the shoulder. The clock ticked quietly behind me. The breeze carried in the scent of something green and new. Martha hadn't forgotten me. She still remembered the rhythm of my name. I read it once, then again, and a third time, even slower. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I wanted to feel it one more time. Martha had asked if I'd like to visit, not out of pity, not as a favor, but like she actually wanted me there. "Just for a change of pace," she wrote again. "We'd love to have you." My eyes moved over the words slowly, soaking them in like sunlight on skin that hadn't felt warmth in a while. The lawnmower hummed faintly outside, and the table was still scattered with junk mail. But her letter sat in the middle of it all like a heartbeat. I hadn't been asked how I was in months, not really. But Martha had asked, and in those few sentences, I felt something I hadn't felt. In a long time, welcomed, the scent lingered on my fingers. Lavender. Like the sachets we used to slip into hymnals before Sunday service. Just a little softness, folded in with the pages. It smelled calm, like kindness. Like the women who always brought extra, just in case someone forgot. That's kind of thoughtful. That kind of knowing. I held the letter close to my face, breathing it in slowly. The lace curtain fluttered in the breeze behind me, brushing against my shoulder like an old friend. Birdsong drifted in from somewhere outside, soft, steady, like it had been waiting for me to notice. My eyes burned unexpectedly. Not from sadness, from memory, from the feeling of being gently remembered. I didn't move much after that, just stayed there, quiet. The letter pressed to my chest, eyes closed, not crying, not thinking, just being. There was a stillness in the room that felt rare, like everything had finally stopped moving. I could feel the paper bend slightly beneath my fingers, could hear the rustle of leaves outside. It wasn't just about going somewhere new. It was about being seen. Someone had taken the time to say, "You still matter." Not as a duty, not as decoration, but because they missed me. That realization didn't hurt, it healed. I didn't rush to pack, didn't reach for the phone. But I stood up just a little straighter. The room felt different. Like someone had cracked open a window that had been stuck shut for years. The golden light stretched across the table, gentle and long, softening everything it touched. And inside me, something small flickered. It wasn't loud, but it was there. Little light, a little hope. I didn't know where it would take me, but I knew. Finally, I wasn't waiting in the dark anymore. Someone had left a lamp on, just for me. I left a note on the counter. Nothing long, just, Gone to visit Martha for a bit. Mom. No confrontation, no explanation, just my name, written softly. The early spring light came in through the kitchen blinds, striping the tile in pale gold. I heard no footsteps, no questions. The house was still asleep. I zipped my small overnight bag. It made a soft hum, like it didn't want to disturb anyone either. The wheels thudded gently across the floor as I pulled it behind me. I paused by the door and looked back, not at the house, but at the silence I was leaving inside it. No one would stop me. No one even knew. My heart wasn't sure. It fluttered against my ribs like it wasn't used to this kind of freedom. But it was mine. And as I stepped outside into the crisp morning, it felt like I'd grown wings I hadn't used in years. Martha opened the gate with a smile so wide it made the sun look lazy. "Come sit," she said, holding out a glass of lemonade. It was so cold, the outside dripped with little beads of water. I took it with both hands and followed her to the courtyard, where chairs were already waiting. The daffodils leaned in uneven rows along the stone path, blooming like they had no care for symmetry. The breeze carried soft laughter from across the yard, little bursts like wind chimes. I didn't say much at first, just listened, watched, let the light land on my arms and the lemon slide down my throat. And slowly, something in me shifted, not all at once, but enough, like a window stuck shut all winter finally giving way to spring air. And at that moment, I didn't feel like a guest. I felt like I'd arrived. They passed the yarn basket, around like it was something sacred. "Do you like warm colors or cool?" one of them asked. I blinked. "Warm," I said. "Always have." Another leaned in. "What's your favorite pie crust recipe?" I smiled. "Cold butter, always cold." They didn't ask out of politeness. They asked because they wanted to. No. It had been so long since someone saw me beyond my usefulness, beyond mom or helper. Now, I was just me. Afternoon light poured through the glass doors behind us, soft and golden. The table in front of us was scattered with teacups and tangled yarn, and I felt it, the first small stitch of something healing. They asked if I'd teach a knitting class. "Just a beginner's group," Martha said, handing me a schedule. My hands hesitated. I stared at them. Slower now, stiffer. But I said, "Sure," and my voice didn't shake. The first time I showed them how to cast on, my fingers remembered more than I thought. "Like this," I said, gently guiding a shaky pair of hands through the loop. "See? The yarn leads?" Someone whispered, "You make it look easy," and I smiled. Not proud exactly, just sure. The scent of cookies and lavender hand cream filled the air. As I watched them try, fumble, and laugh, something inside me hummed. It wasn't about the yarn, it was about being needed again, for something beautiful. She told a story about her grandson sneaking cookies before dinner. The punchline hit, and I laughed, really laughed. Loud and full and without apology. Heads turned, and I braced for the hush. But no one started. They smiled. They laughed with me. I looked down at my empty plate, then back up at the faces around me. That laugh had come from a place that hadn't seen light in years, and it felt good, so good, to let it out and know it belonged. At night, I'd sit near the window and just watch. The daffodils in the garden leaned into the wind like they were listening for something. So was I. I didn't miss the house I left behind. I missed me. The woman I was before I started disappearing piece by piece. But sitting there with the, crickets singing and the air cool on my cheeks, I could feel her again, not all at once, but she was coming back. And this time, I'd welcome her home. Martha poured tea with steady hands, the scent of lemon cookies floating between us. We'd already talked about the garden, her knee acting up, and the woman 2 doors down who still played bingo like it was a sport. Then, with a little wink, she reached into her cardigan pocket and slid a card across the table. "Just in case," she said. I looked at it. Simple print, a name, a number. The edges were slightly bent. It looked like something passed between women who understood each other without saying too much. I slipped it into my sweater pocket without a word. For days, I carried it around. My fingers found it often, feeling the corners, smoothing them like a secret only I knew. And then, one afternoon, with sunlight spilling across the table and the room too quiet, I picked up the phone. Not because I had to, but because something inside me whispered, "You're allowed." The office was quiet and cool, the kind of place that smelled faintly of coffee and carpet cleaner. Soft jazz played overhead, just enough to fill the space without asking for attention. I stepped inside, smoothing my blouse without thinking. The woman at the desk looked up and smiled. "Mrs. Holloway?" I froze for a second, then nodded. "Yes. Just..." Hearing it, my full name said kindly without a sigh or a pause, did something to me. It made my shoulders pull back, made my spine straighten. I wasn't just someone's mother-in-law or the guest in the small back room. I was me, Mrs. Holloway. And in that moment, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt remembered. She typed for a bit, then looked up from the screen. "Your name's still on the house." I blinked. "It is?" She nodded. "They never removed it." I sat there still. The midday sun caught the corner of her monitor and reflected softly across the desk. That house, the one where I'd folded laundry, cooked meals, raised my son, and later disappeared inside, was still mine. I didn't feel bitter. I felt anchored, like after floating too long. I'd finally touched something solid. I reached for my old leather purse and rested it in my lap. I wasn't erased, not entirely, and that mattered more than I knew. The pen was warm in my hand, gold, heavy. The contracts were thick, but not intimidating. I glanced at the papers once more. Everything looked right. No one rushed me. I signed my name, one page, then the next. Not out of spite, not to hurt them, but to claim what had always been mine. I had been boxed into the corner of that house, but I built that house, brick by memory, meal by meal. Selling it wasn't revenge. It was peaceful. It was me saying, "This chapter is over." And even if they never bothered to read it, I was still the one who wrote it. The cottage wasn't big. It didn't need to be. It sat quietly at the end of a narrow lane, yellow siding shining like afternoon sunlight. I stepped up to the porch and felt the breeze coming off the lake. Daffodils swayed gently near the steps. The key was cool in my hand. When I opened the door, the scent of pine and fresh paint met me like a soft welcome. The windows faced the lake. The porch swing creaked a little in the breeze. I walked inside and let the light wrap around me. I didn't care how many square feet there were. This was mine, the peace I'd earned, the joy I never stopped hoping for, and finally, a front door that opened for me. The kitchen window was open with just a crack. Curtains fluttered, letting in late afternoon air. I was wiping the counter when I caught it, my reflection in the glass. At first, I didn't recognize her, eyes softer. Hair loose, mouth turned up just slightly, not forced, just resting there. A real smile. I stared for a moment, not in disbelief, but in remembrance. That woman, she wasn't lost, she was just waiting, and now she'd come home. That smile. I didn't borrow it. I bought it back, with every ounce of quiet courage I had left, and it was worth every step. The fire crackled gently, casting warm shadows along the cottage walls. I sat in my favorite armchair, the old one with the wooden arms that creaked just a little when I shifted. The clock ticked steadily, soft and steady, the way I liked it. Then the phone lit up. The screen glowed against the dim room, and his name, appeared, clear, sharp, and expected. I didn't flinch. My hand moved with quiet purpose. I picked it up, let it rest against my cheek. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice just above the fire's breath. The air held still, like even the house was waiting to hear what came next. I already knew this call would come. What I didn't know was how different I'd feel when it finally did. Not afraid. Not angry, just ready. He didn't waste a second. "Why would you do this to us?" he snapped. Not shouted, snapped, like something tight had finally broken. His voice wasn't full of rage. It was full of confusion, hurt, maybe even guilt. Listened. The phone was warm against my ear. The fire popped once behind me, reminding me that I was still grounded, still here. "I mean, you just left," he went on. "No warning, no talk, just gone." I kept breathing, slow, steady. He wasn't ready for quiet. He wanted the version of me who always smoothed things over. But she wasn't answering tonight. I let him speak, let the storm roll through the wire. Because this time, I wasn't bracing for the damage. I was waiting for the calm that always comes after. When he paused, I leaned slightly forward, eyes on the fire. I could have shouted. I could have reminded him of the boxes, the cot, the forgotten dinners, but I didn't. I spoke the way I used to when he woke up scared at night, calm, steady, certain. Because I was never us in that house, I said. No bitterness, no edge, just air. Finally let out of a balloon held too long. He didn't interrupt. I stared into the flames, watching the way they flickered around the logs. It wasn't about being dramatic. It was about finally telling the truth and letting it stand, tall in the room. He didn't say a word, not one. But this silence wasn't angry. It was heavy, with memory, with thought, with the slow shifting of someone seeing something they'd missed for too long. I could almost hear it. The years rewinding in his mind, the Christmases I cooked alone, the laundry folded neatly without thanks, the nights I stayed up in a chair near the hall, just in case someone needed me. The fire crackled softly beside me. The house breathed, with me, not for me. And still, he said nothing. But this time, his silence didn't make me feel small. It made me feel heard. I didn't rush to fill the space. Didn't say, "I'm sorry." Didn't offer, "I understand." I let the truth settle, let it sit like a well-folded quilt, simple, whole, not to be tugged at or undone. My thumb brushed the edge of the phone, the warmth of the fire touched my cheek, and I stayed still, not in fear, but in peace. It was the first time I hadn't apologized just to make things easier for someone else, and the silence didn't feel like a void. It felt like a boundary that had finally been respected. Eventually I said, "Good night." Just that, not heavy, not cold, just real. I don't remember if he said it back. I didn't wait to find out. I set the phone down on the table beside me, its screen fading to black. The fire was mostly embers now, glowing soft in the quiet. Leaned back in my chair, my hand resting still in my lap. For the first time in a long time, my chest didn't feel empty. It felt like it belonged to me again, and that, more than anything, was enough. The rain had been falling since morning, soft, steady, like it didn't plan on stopping anytime soon. It wasn't the kind of storm that frightened. It was the kind that soaked quietly into everything, sidewalks, flower beds, old memories. I had made chamomile tea, not because I needed it, but because I wanted something warm in my hands. The kind of day that asks you to slow down. The sky outside. The window was the color of an old quilt, faded gray, comforting in its own way. I didn't expect anyone. Not on a Sunday. So when the doorbell rang, I didn't startle. I just set my cup down gently on the coaster and stood. My hands were steady, but my heart, It did that old dance of wondering whether to brace or to open. The rain tapped softly against the windows. And I walked toward the door, already knowing who it would be, and knowing this moment would carry more weight than sound. He stood on the porch with his shoulders just slightly drawn in, rain darkening the fabric of his coat. No umbrella. No flowers. No rehearsed smile. Just him. "Hi, Mom," he said, and he said it like it meant something, like it cost something. His breath fogged in the air between us. I looked at his face, the creases at the corners of his mouth, the tired curve of his eyebrows. The years he had worn since I'd last really seen him. His eyes were rimmed red, not from rain. I didn't move at first. Just held the door open wide enough for the smell of damp earth to drift in. Then, without a word, I stepped back. Not in surrender, but in permission. I hadn't offered forgiveness yet. But in that moment, something softened. Not with relief, but with recognition. He had come with nothing to prove, and somehow that was enough. I didn't say anything, just turned toward the kitchen and reached for the cabinet. 2 cups, one chipped on the rim, his favorite when he was a boy. I set them down on the counter. The kettle, already warm, let out a soft whistle. I poured without asking. Some things don't need permission. Behind me, he stood still, not sitting yet, just watching like he was afraid to break something. I drizzled honey into his cup the way he used to like it. The rain kept up its rhythm on the windows, steady, thoughtful, almost like it was listening too. I handed him the cup and finally met his eyes. He didn't say, "Thank you." He didn't have to. In our little kitchen, warmed by steam and history, the tea did what words couldn't. It reminded us how to begin. He held the cup in both hands like it might keep him steady. His voice was soft when it came. "I didn't see it," he said. His thumb rubbed the side of the mug. "I'm sorry, Mom. That was it. No long explanation, no defense, just the truth. Quiet, late, raw." I didn't respond right away. The clock ticked in the background. The light had gone dim enough that the corners of the kitchen looked a little blurred, like memory. He didn't rush me, and that meant more than anything. I looked at him. Not through the years, but right here. Right now. Then I nodded, not to say, "It's all okay," not to pretend it hadn't hurt, but to say, "This is a beginning, and beginnings don't need perfect words, they just need honesty." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. I held the mug close, the heat comforting against my palms. "I felt like an extra," I said quietly. "Like a coat you hang by the door, only useful when it's raining." His eyes stayed on me. He didn't interrupt. "I wasn't angry," I added. "Not most of the time, but I was tired of disappearing." The rain outside softened, like even the sky was trying to listen. "I gave you everything," I whispered. "And when I needed something small in return, no one saw me." He didn't argue, didn't shift in his seat, and I was grateful, because I hadn't said it to hurt him. I had said it so he could finally see where I had been standing, right beside them, invisible. We sat in silence, 2 cups between us. The house so still I could hear the faint crackle of the fireplace starting again in the other room. The rain had eased to a mist, soft against the windows, like breath. He looked around slowly at the books on the shelf, the vase of fresh daisies on the counter. "This place is peaceful," he said, more to himself than to me. I nodded. "It is." He didn't ask how I made it that way, but for the first time, I think he understood. That peace wasn't something that just happened. It was something I had built, brick by choice, layer by silence, and now, in that quiet, he saw it too. Not as something I ran to, but as something I deserved. The table was mostly cleared now, just our mugs sitting near the edge. I picked up his napkin and folded it gently, corner to corner. The kind of fold I used to do at Sunday dinners when I still believed everyone noticed. Outside, the rain had stopped. The light shifted, gold, forgiving, peeking through clouds like it was testing the air. I stood and walked to the window. The scent of wet grass floated in, soft and clean. He hadn't asked to be forgiven, and I hadn't offered it. But when I turned back, I nodded to the chair across from me. He sat down, not as a child needing permission, but as someone who knew he had to earn his place again, and I let him. Because forgiveness doesn't forget, it just lets someone try again. Every morning, like clockwork, the sun finds me through that east-facing window. It pours in slowly and golden, touching the rug where my feet rest before it reaches anything else. I sit there with my tea, hands wrapped around the mug, and just let the light warm me. Beyond the glass, the lake glimmers like a secret, quiet, sure of itself, not loud, not proud, just steady. A bird or two calls out from the trees, and the breeze lifts the curtain in that lazy way that makes you close your eyes for a second longer. I don't rush. I sit. I breathe. And every morning I'm reminded, this view is mine. Not rented, not borrowed, not tolerated, mine. I chose this little window. I chose this light. And the peace that comes through it doesn't come with noise or needing permission. It comes because I said yes to myself. The stillness doesn't frighten me anymore. I used to wake to lists, things to clean, people to please, noise pressing through the walls. Now I wake to breathe, to the soft gurgle of the kettle on the stove, to the slow click of the toaster waiting patiently for bread. The robin that visits the railing chirps once, then twice, like she's checking in before heading off. The sunlight slips across the floorboards without asking for attention. I take it all in without needing to do anything. There is no schedule here, just rhythm, just rest. The silence doesn't expect anything from me. It simply lets me be. And in that quiet, I've found more healing than any words could offer. People talk about second chances like they're gifts handed down from someone else. But mine didn't come wrapped in anyone's approval. It came the day I whispered no more to an empty room and started packing a bag. It grew in the quiet moments when I choose peace over obligation, stillness over sacrifice. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's sacred. I sit now, sunlight brushing across the pages of my journal, steam curling from a mug that's warmed my hands more days than I can count. The breeze moves gently through the open window, and I know this truth deep in my bones. No one gave me this new beginning. I gave it to myself. There was a time I made myself small. I tiptoed around opinions, lowered my voice, shrank into the corners of rooms I once filled with love. I called it grace, told myself I was being kind. But kindness that erases you isn't kindness. It's quiet erasure. Now I sit tall. I rest without guilt. I smile and let it stay, even when no one's looking. The lake sparkles outside the window, and the breeze tugs gently at the edges of my patchwork quilt. The air smells like rising dough, familiar, full, and I stretch. Not for anyone else, but for me. Because I was never meant to shrink. None of us are. Every morning, just after sunrise, a little wren lands on my windowsill. She chirps twice, maybe 3 times, clear and bold. She sings like the geese. World belongs to her, and no one tells her to stop. No one asks her why she sings. She just does. I sit with my tea, watching her hop and flutter. She's not asking for space. She takes it, not rudely, just confidently. I smile at her, feeling something small and sure spark inside my chest. I don't need a stage. I just need this moment, this cup, this view, this breath. Like her, I earned this space. Not because someone gave it to me, but because I decided It was mine. I pulled a second chair to the window one afternoon, not because someone was coming, but because maybe one day someone will. Someone I want to sit with. Someone who doesn't drain the air when they speak. The light hits both chairs now, falling gently across their backs. The daffodils outside bloom quietly, without fanfare. There's peace in that. This second chair isn't about habit or loneliness. It's about hope, the hope of a visitor. A story shared, a laugh that belongs in this room. Not everyone earns the seat, but some will, and this time I get to decide. And that's what freedom really looks like. If you've ever felt like you had to tiptoe in your own home, come sit here, right by the window. Let the sun find your hands. Let the breeze rest on your face. You don't have to say much. You don't even have to smile if it's not ready yet. Just be. This spot is for the ones who gave too much and asked for too little. For the ones who were told they took up too much space. Or none at all. The lake out there doesn't ask permission to shine. The light doesn't apologize for entering. And neither should you. You matter. You always did. You just needed a window to remind you. Thank you for sitting with me by the window. A while. If any part of this story touched something quiet in you, I'd love to hear about it below. And if you'd like more stories like this one, you're welcome to stay.